Right. I am going to talk to you about my relationship with food in this video because I want to be really completely honest with you about my background and my history. And that's because I want you to realize that anything you feel uncomfortable about coming into this program, I have probably done too. And the best thing that we can do to change how we are is to be open and honest. Because when we shine a light on things that we're ashamed or embarrassed about, it has this wonderful effect of taking all the power away from them. And from a food point of view, for as long as I can remember, I never had an off switch. I love all foods apart from baked beans. I can't bear them. And just would always have room for more, for seconds, for something else. And I have a daughter who is the complete opposite to me, which I'm very grateful for, but I'm also very fascinated by, because she has what I would describe as a perfectly functioning set of appetite hormones. She will not eat unless she is hungry. If she's hungry, she can wait until her dinner's ready, or if she'll make something herself, nothing will go in her mouth until that meal is ready. And she's happy to take her time, make something nice. She's 18, by the way, so she's old enough to make her own food. And then she'll sit down and eat it. But the minute she is full, she will not touch anything else. She will just put her fork down, and it doesn't matter what's there, she won't touch it. In the past, when she was little, we could have, say, on her birthday, she's had her party and then there's a birthday cake and she'll say, "Oh, I'll have some later." She will not eat anything, no matter how nice, how special, how exciting it is, unless she's got room and she's not hungry and she's hungry. It's incredible. And she's a sort of person, this is a disaster, that can have chocolate half opened, unopened, in her bedroom, in her cupboard for months. Okay, I'll tell you. And that's been a bit of an opening for me sometimes, but I'll tell you about that later on. So she's the complete opposite me that has never experienced what any of that feels like. I do not have an off switch. If I'm hungry, it's like I'm like panicking. And if I'm cooking while I'm starving, I would certainly be eating. I mean, I don't do that as much now. Um, and yeah, and it doesn't matter how full I am. If someone put a cake in front of me or a chocolate, there's always room. I can't understand it, but it's quite fascinating that we can be opposite ends of a spectrum. And I this was something that I noticed from being quite a young child, that I was always really hungry, or not, no, I wouldn't say I was really hungry, but always if I ate something and I enjoyed it, I wanted another one. There was just no point where you would think that that lost its attraction. And I probably was okay when I was a child. I probably was one of the bigger girls in my class, but not, you wouldn't notice, to be honest. But when I left home and it became up to me what I ate, then that was a different story. My weight ballooned, start drinking Chinese takeaways at the end of the night. There was a cake shop near where I lived. I used to go and buy 3 cream cakes. And I'm 5'3", so I'm quite small. And I was around 11 stone when I was 19. And it did get to a point where I just couldn't fit into my clothes. So I dieted when I was at school, and then I dieted more seriously through from being about 19 onwards. And I have, over that time, tried every diet you can think of. I won't bore you by going through them all because we've probably all done the same. And I did it because I think I recognized, even from that age, in my early 20s, that I didn't have an off switch. And if I just ate what I wanted without any sort of restraint, I knew I had the potential to be morbidly obese, because I knew there was just never a point when I would stop. And because of this sort of constant fight to not carry on eating and to diet and to watch my weight, I just became obsessed with food. I became obsessed with dieting. I did, like I say, you on one fad or another. Eventually, I became a vegetarian in my 20s. And that was a disaster. I was always, always hungry. But in a way, it worked because I thought I was eating low fat food, and I was. So I could keep eating. And I did. I would eat all day long because I was always hungry. And I could be, I'd come home and I'd make these massive dinners that were just all vegetables, all pasta and all vegetables and couscous or rice. I think, following this low fat, I think that was probably a Rosemary Conley phase, this low fat diet. So these massive big portions of food to try and fill myself up with as few calories as I could. And I could feel physically full and bloated, but I just couldn't get this feeling out of me of just, oh, there was just like an itch that just was trying to scratch that just wouldn't turn off, that always had me looking for something else. So I did. I'd be going through the cupboards, I'd be looking in and out, what can I have? What can I have? And I'd be picking things. And I always ate healthy food. I had nuts and prunes and dried fruit. So I was eating all these really high sugary things, trying to find something that would just make me think, oh, that's enough. But I just never, ever got to that point. And eventually I'd give up and a bit embarrassed. My husband of the time, who is just like his daughter, never hungry, would just probably thought it was crackers, but never said anything. And I'd probably be a bit embarrassed because I'm just going through my kitchen eating and eating and eating. And then I'd lie in bed just with this massive bloated stomach, really struggling to sleep because it was so uncomfortable. And I would be furious with myself for how much I'd eaten all night. And my life went on like that for years. And, it wasn't until I was in my late 30s that I worked with a fantastic personal trainer. It's what made me want to be a PT, actually. And he taught me about protein. And by this point, I had stopped being vegetarian, and he gave me a meal plan to eat something like a burger and a salad. I can't remember. And literally after the first meal, it was like a switch had turned off in my brain, and that feeling that I'd been fighting all my life had gone. I just wasn't hungry. I didn't have a desire to eat. It was quite strange, actually. I just didn't know what to do with myself because I was so used to this, eating my dinner and then going on this hunt for something else. But that just stopped. So that was new information, and that changed a lot for me. And like I say, I was in my late 30s then, and I tended to manage okay from there. But it was still just a deeply ingrained thing of just always having a good appetite and enjoying my food. So I did have to keep an eye on things. And I eventually went down the low carb route, the keto route, and then the intermittent fasting route. And, I always enjoyed the novelty of these diets. I enjoyed reading all about them and going on blogs and forums and all the rest of it. I did enjoyed it. But it did begin to feel more stressful on my body. And I was going to say my mind, but maybe I didn't realize that at the time. But it does start to become literally all you think about, or, from the minute you get up till the minute you go to bed. And I didn't quite realize I was in perimenopause, but there was a time in my mid 40s where my cravings just went off the scale. I was really stressed. Work was very difficult. Tim and I worked for ourselves, and it was a real uphill battle just to sort of stay on top of the money that we needed. So it was a really stressful time. But I think it was perimenopause in hindsight, and my cravings just went through the roof. And just trying to keep on top of this low carb, no bread, no sugar, don't eat before 2 o'clock in the afternoon. It was killing me. It was driving me mad. It just felt so stressful in my mind. It just felt so stressful in my body. And I can remember just a minute that I was sat by a cupboard looking in it and thought, I can't do this anymore. I can't be on a diet anymore. And I did just stop. It just got too much. The rules, just think about it constantly. It just was, yeah, it just got too much. I mean, my main thing for menopause was overwhelm and anxiety. And I just added in all these things that I was trying to control with food, but whilst being really hungry and really deprived and really craving all these things, I could not cope with it all. And letting go of all those restrictions felt amazing, because I've been years and years and years telling myself I couldn't have this, that, and the other all at these times. I mean, and it just felt so free. And so I really relished it. And knowing that I could just have some bread if I fancied it, or a slice of cake. And my meals became more normal and varied, which I actually enjoyed after low carb years of being able to have pasta again, or sandwiches again, or rice, what have you. Well, the problem that persisted was emotional eating. And once I'd sort of got over the diet restrictions and started to eat in a normal way, which to say I enjoyed, you do then start to see other things being the problem. And that was the problem. Even though I was eating well, I understood a lot more about nutrition by this point and protein, but I'd still found myself stood in front of the fridge hacking off lumps of cheese, wondering why I was there. And I recognized, I did a lot of journaling and I started to recognize that I needed to eat when I was stressed or anxious and I was overwhelmed. And they were my main menopause symptoms: stress, anxiety, overwhelm. I worked for myself a lot of the time. I worked from home. So I could have complete freedom, free reign of the fridge. And, I was just constantly eating. I remember reading something about having 3 meals a day and 2 snacks a day. And then I thought about how many snacks I had a day if I counted everything. And sometimes I wasn't even going an hour without eating something. And I was a little bit, well, I was definitely shocked, certainly was embarrassed about it. I was also very ashamed and I did a lot of my eating in secret. So even though I wanted to eat, I would tend to wait until everyone went out. I think when people are around, you can be quite busy and distracted, so you don't think about it. It's when you're on your own and you don't know what to do with yourself, I was straight in the kitchen. So I'd be, either doing it when no one was around, or I'd be sneaking back into the kitchen to tidy up and having bits sliced, really thin slices off the cake. Because I always made cakes for the kids, or squaring off the cheese, or picking a bit off the loaf or the pizza, or it's all there, and I was just going back and getting it all. My daughter had a cupboard with her own chocolates on, and I was stealing her chocolate and blatantly lying about having it. I've told her aunts had got things in the past, or that I'd thrown stuff away because it was too unhealthy for her and I'd eaten it. So I have confessed to some of these things, I have to admit. And, the other thing I did was I just really got to a point where I wanted to have something sweet after every meal. Or if I was cooking, I was always eating while I was cooking, or I'd be in the cupboard, spoonfuls of peanut butter. You get the picture. You name it, I've done it. Now, I hated it. You love the food. You like the moment when you think, oh, spoonful of peanut butter or a bit of cheese or a bit of extra cake. But what I hated was I hated feeling so out of control that I just had this like pull, this almost like gravitational pull to the kitchen and to food all the time. And, I felt out of control with it. And, I recognized I was thinking about it all the time. But I was always trying to work out why I felt like that. And, Googling it, reading about food. Didn't think I had a food addiction, but I went down that rabbit hole of thinking, have I got a food addiction? And am I addicted to sugar? No, I wasn't. I just didn't know how to eat. I just didn't understand how I was. I have probably got different appetite hormones to my daughter. I think that's quite I think that's quite obvious. But I certainly didn't have an eating disorder. I just was suffering from menopause cravings, from just emotional eating, and not really understanding how to fuel myself properly. So, eventually, just by my curiosity and my dogged determination to get to the bottom of what was going on, I did eventually figure it out. And, I will say slowly, and it's not a linear thing. I didn't just sort of find the secret and everything changed. I've had to work at it. I've had to figure things out. There's been ups and downs, and I'm sure there always will be to a certain extent, and I'm okay with that now. And everything that I'm going to teach you on the program is based on what I've learned through that time, what's worked for me, what's worked for other women that I've coached. But for now, I just wanted to be honest with you and tell you how I've been, how I've ate. And I hope that makes you feel a lot better about you and any cravings that you've struggled with so far, or any food that you've stolen off people and not owned up to. But I also want to give you the confidence that you can get back in control, and there is a way through this, and I'll help you do that over the next 8 weeks while we're working together. Okay, bye for now.